Greetings, computer science enthusiasts, and today we're going to talk about compound conditionals. We've already been using compound conditionals. I want to go and explain this in a little bit more in depth. So if you look at your screen, you see this very familiar block of code. Mouse pressed over sprite means true if the cursor is over the sprite and I left click. Otherwise, it's false. T is not equal to world.seconds is true when those two values don't equal each other. If you remember, usually we initialize t at -1, and when the function draw starts running, world.seconds begins with a value of 0, and then every second that passes, it updates with that second. So after 20 seconds of the program running, world.seconds is equal to 20. So by starting out with t at equal to -1 and world.seconds, no matter where I am in my run, those two are not going to be equal. So initially, that's also going to be true. So since both of those statements are true and they're separated by the double ampersand is basically the compound conditional and. And it means that both of the two Boolean statements on either side of the ampersands need to be true for the whole thing to be true so that the code inside the block can run. If either one of them is false, the code inside the block will not run. So let's kind of walk through what's happening. My sprite is moving around. I click over it. So that's true. The t not equal to world seconds. T was initialized at -1. That can't be true. So or the not equals is true. So both statements are true. Therefore, I enter into the blue block of code. Count is equal to count plus 1. I incremented my counter. And then t is equal to world.seconds. That means wherever I was in my program, the t and the world seconds are now equal to each other. So if in that 1 second interval, I click on the sprite again, even though this part was true, this part will be false because these two values will equal each other, and therefore it's false that they don't equal each other. So that's what prevents me from getting back in and increasing count until at least a second has passed. And so that's why that solution was able to prevent the program from registering multiple clicks from what we think was a single click, when actually it was just the computer was running so fast that one click got counted as 3 clicks. But by breaking each click up into 1 second intervals, which is what this half of the compound conditional does, it prevents that from happening. So what we're going to do today is we're going to really explore what all is entailed in a compound conditional, and we're going to look at some really, really detailed examples. So I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of this stuff for right now, and I'm going to slap up some new code. Let me do that in text version real quick, and then put it back in a block version. So here we have some code that I've created 2 variables, an x variable and a y variable, and then inside the draw, I've assigned the x value every time the draw function executes. So basically, this is going to be dynamic. As I move the mouse around, this is going to change. And the x value will equal the x coordinate of the mouse, world.mousex, and the y value will equal the y value of the mouse. And then inside that, I put a conditional statement. Mouse went down. That means on the left click button, that means if I press the left click button, then that will allow it to print out to the console what the x and y values were when I clicked. Because remember, this stuff is being reassigned over and over and over again. So let me pull my console up a little bit so we can see it. Notice that when I left click, you get a big red circle. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program. Now, right now, nothing's happening. I can move my mouse around the stage and nothing's happening. Behind the scenes, the x and y values are getting assigned. Like for right here, if I just leave my mouse right here, x is 121 and y is 149. And if you click, you will see that it prints out. I must have moved it a little bit when I clicked it. So it's hard to keep my hand steady when I click it, but you see that as I click the left button, I'm getting output. Okay? So what if I wanted to restrict where that output went? So let's go and put the grid up here. Let's say I only wanted the output to occur in this section right up here, where X is bigger than 200, but Y is less than 200. So bigger than 200, less than 200 is anywhere in this area right here. So what I want to do is I want to create a compound conditional that will allow for that event to occur. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab control and I'm going to put a conditional in here. And then I'm going to put the output based off of that conditional. And so now let's go in here and let's code what our compound conditional is. Now you kind of have to work backwards. I know I'm going to use a compound conditional. I want my conditional to be the Boolean and. So I'm going to take that block and drag it in there. And then I want to do some comparisons between what X and Y are. So here, X is going to be greater than 200. And here, Y is going to be less than 200. So now, where does that occur? I need to reset and run my program again. Where does that occur? That occurs right here at 240. That's bigger than 200. 134, that's less than 200. So anywhere in this region, if I click, I'll get console output. However, if I go down here, I can click all I want and I get no console output. Same in this quadrant right here and same in this quadrant right here. If I was able to get right on 200, 200, I still wouldn't get any output. Okay? Because both of these two conditions have to be true for me to have output to the console. By the way, that's the same effect as nesting if statements. So if I put an if statement inside of an if statement, that's equivalent to a compound and. It's just an easier way of writing it. So for example, if I pull this out right here and I create another if statement and I put that if statement inside my other one and then put the output here, and then now I'm going to say if X is greater than 200 for this conditional, and I'm going to say Y is less than 200 for this conditional. This is really the exact same effect in the program, just a different logic behind it. And actually, the logic isn't really that different. You see, when I'm in this quadrant right here, it's producing output. It's just written differently. So a compound conditional is like nesting if statements together. In fact, you might have noticed that I could have gone ahead and I could have nested all of this stuff into one if statement. So here's what I mean by that. I'm going to go to a compound conditional, and then I'm going to put another compound conditional in a compound conditional. Now all three of these have to be true. And for this one, it'll be if the mouse button went down, the left button went down, and X is greater than 200, and Y is greater than 300. And now I only need that one if statement. I don't need three different nested if statements. Now this program will function exactly like the other one. So see, I'm clicking out here and nothing happens. I get in the quadrant and I click and I get the output. So that's the importance of having a compound conditional, is it lets you basically create one if statement, but a little bit more complex solutions. All right, we've talked about and. Now let's talk about or. So I'm going to pull this out right here. I'm going to pull out that and statement. I'm going to leave this when mouse is down. And now I'm going to create a different situation. I'm going to use or. So OR is signified by the double vertical lines. The OR Boolean operator looks like that. And to get an OR situation, you can use the same numbers here. So I could say when X is greater than 200 and when Y is less than 200. So I'll put my X here and I'll put my Y here and I'll put the values in here, 200 and 200. The difference is now if either one of these two conditionals is true, then this whole group will be true. Now, this has to be true, and then this group over here has to be true because this is AND. But here with OR, if either one of these two individual statements are true, it makes the whole thing true. That means when X is greater than 200 is now going to be to the right of this line right here. And when X is less than 200, it's going to be below here. It's true. The only place that they're both false is up here in this upper left-hand corner block of blocks. So let's reset that and run that. And notice that's true. That's now true. That's true. That's true. I'm sorry. This part right here is true because this is the false part, because this is where Y is less than, this is where Y is not less than 200. Y is bigger than 200. X is less than 200. So in this situation right here, both of the OR statements are false. X less than 200 or greater than 200 is false. Y less than 200 in this area is false. So two falses mean that that whole thing is going to return false. And I don't get the output because if this side is false, then this other side, doesn't matter whether it's true or false or not, it's going to be false. So now I have three areas or three quadrants in which I can click and give output. But no matter how many times I click here, that's not going to give me output. So that's basically the difference between a AND value and an OR value. We also have a NOT value. And let's talk about that real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the NOT value. Let me just pull out this X is less than 200. And I'm going to put a NOT in here. And then I'm going to put NOT X is greater than 200. Okay. Let's think about the logic behind it because it can get pretty weird. All right, so let's take a look at this right here. My value, my cursor says I'm at 149,251. Okay, so 149 greater than 200 is false. But I'm knotting that. When you knot a false, you change the false to a true. So the exclamation point is basically going to reverse the logic of whatever you already have. So not being greater than 200 means you're less than or equal to 200. So this side of the statement right now is actually true. And so it doesn't matter whether the other side is true or not. If one side of the OR is true, then your statement is going to be true. So when I click, oh, I didn't run it. When I click, I get output. All right, let's move over to here. So X is still greater than, now X is greater than 200. So X is greater than 200 is true, but I knot that true and I change it to false. So that side of the OR is false. Now we need to check for the other side. The Y value is smaller than, it's false that it's less than 200 because 246 less than 200 is a false statement as well. So I've got two falses. That means this won't execute. And notice when I click over here, nothing happens. Up here, the Y side is 93 is less than 200 is true. So that side, since that side is true, it doesn't matter whether the other side is true. The other side is true, by the way. So that's going to work. Or I'm sorry, the other side was false. but the right side of the OR is, the Y side is true, the X side is false, because 299 greater than 200 is true, but not 299 greater than 200 is false. So you take the true and you turn it into a false. So that X side is false. However, over here, the X side is true because I'm at 93. 93 greater than 200 is false. I knot that false to a true, so that side is true. Doesn't matter about the Y side. All right, so there you have it, the different ways that you can apply compound conditionals. To review, we have basically 3 compound conditionals we need to be aware of. The double ampersand, which is the and Boolean operator, and both sides are, if both sides are true, then it will return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. And then down here, we have the or Boolean operator, and if either side is true, then it'll return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. And then finally, we have the not operator, and it's going to return false if it's true. And if the thing inside is true, it's going to return false. So it reverses the truth statement of the operator that's contained within. Hopefully this was informative on compound conditionals. And in our next lesson, we're going to look at some different problems and find solutions to those. So until then, I want you to keep on coding and keep on creating.